I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, war in the Middle East. The U.S. and Israel strike Iran after another failed round of talks.
They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
Though the supreme leader is dead, the Islamic Republic is fighting back, plunging the region into violence and killing American soldiers.
Our deepest and heartfelt condolences are with their families, their friends, and their units.
And in Rome, the shepherd of the Catholic faithful pushing for peace.
May diplomacy regain its proper role, and may the well-being of peoples who yearn for peaceful existence founded on justice be upheld.
Now the world waits, uncertain of what lies ahead. Our special coverage begins right now.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Hundreds are dead across the Middle East, and Americans among them after war breaks out between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. The strikes began in broad daylight on Saturday morning. According to Iranian officials, more than 150 were killed when the school was hit during the attack. Also among the dead, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, killed early on when his compound was targeted by Israeli and U.S. forces. Now new leadership is in control and striking back. Since the U.S. and Israeli strike on Saturday, Iran has fired missiles on Israel as well as U.S. military assets in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Iraq. So far, at least 6 Americans have been killed since hostilities began. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump says the U.S. military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran. The president accuses Iran of ignoring warnings to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. And he says the Iranian regime has been attacking the U.S. for 47 years, killing Americans. He added at an event today, this was the last best chance for the U.S. strike. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Veronica, at that event today in the East Room of the White House, President Donald Trump awarded the Medal of Honor to 3 U.S. Army soldiers. Before that, he addressed the war against Iran, saying the objectives are clear.
First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make.
And according to President Donald Trump, that's not all.
Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
The president also emphasized Iran cannot be allowed to arm and fund terrorist armies outside their borders. And he honored the U.S. service members killed in action, adding that in their memory, we continue this mission.
With ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is.
At the Pentagon, the Secretary of War addressed the media.
We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it.
Pete Hegseth says President Trump repeatedly tried diplomacy with Iran and offered a pathway to peace.
But Tehran was not negotiating. They were stalling, buying time to reload their missile stockpiles and restart their nuclear ambitions.
Hegseth says the U.S. is hitting Iran overwhelmingly and without apology.
The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons.
Air Force General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, laid out how the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran went down, and he thanked military members now standing in harm's way, taking the fight to the enemy, while preparing the nation for potentially more loss of life.
We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses. But as the Secretary said, this is major combat operations.
President Trump calls the Iranian regime sick and sinister. He accuses them of backing out of deals and negotiations. He says the U.S. will easily prevail, and that things are going ahead of schedule. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
With those strikes against Iran, Congress faces a war over the war. Republicans generally back the president's actions, while Democrats say they are determined to end his ability to continue the conflict. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now. And Eric, lawmakers have walked into a buzzsaw of questions. What more can you tell us?
Well, good evening, Veronica. Lawmakers are wrestling with how to respond. The administration briefed congressional leaders before carrying out the strikes, but some here on Capitol Hill say that wasn't enough. The Gang of Eight, they received a briefing at around 4 o'clock today by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other military officials. Other lawmakers will get briefings tomorrow and throughout the week. But that hasn't stopped the backlash from critics who say that this was not an emergency and the president should have gotten congressional approval.
If you're going to initiate war, you need Congress. The president not only did not come to Congress to seek a debate or vote, he acted without even notification to the vast majority of us. This is an illegal war.
Senator Tim Kaine is sponsoring a resolution to limit the president's authority and to stop any further action. Over in the House, Representative Ro Khanna is doing the same thing. This week, a vote is expected on both resolutions.
The American people are tired of regime change wars that cost us billions of dollars and risk our lives. We don't want to be at war with a country of 90 million people in the Middle East.
Also, Republican Senator Rand Paul is a co-sponsor of a proposal to stop further hostilities against Iran without congressional approval. He has the support of several Democrats. Other Republicans counter that it was an emergency because Iran was very close to producing a nuclear missile and had to be stopped.
It's why President Trump bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran. It's why President Trump arrested Maduro. And it's why now President Trump is acting decisively to take out a theocratic lunatic who pledges death to America.
They add that's because of the open border policy of the Biden administration that allowed thousands of known terrorists to enter the country.
We know terrorists tried to enter our country. Iran has a long history of terrorizing America going back 46 years, to include here in the United States. They tried to assassinate Donald Trump last year.
Other senators don't anticipate the U.S. military will have boots on the ground in Iran. Right now, the operation will strictly involve strikes from Navy ships and fighter jets.
We're going to stand up to protect America. We're going to stand up to protect Israel. And we're going to make sure that Iran does not have nuclear weapons to destroy America or destroy our ally Israel.
Now, prior to the meeting with the Gang of Eight, the Secretary of State spoke to the media, stating that a strike needed to take place and we needed to hit them first because Iran was close to having a nuclear program.
Ultimately, this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran, in about a year or a year and a half, would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones, that no one could do anything about it because they could hold the whole world hostage.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. focus right now is a total destruction of Iran's ballistic missile operation, both short and long-term range missiles. If a regime happens, he says that that's up to the Iranian people, and he advises them to speak up now. He added that the hardest hits are yet to come and that the U.S. will be in this war for as long as it takes. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
With more countries becoming involved and no immediate end in sight, church leaders are calling on those in power to make moral decisions. In an effort to shed light on the situation, we turn to church teaching. As the conflict widens, Catholic leaders are reacting and calling for peace. So what is the Catholic Church's teaching on war? EWTN News Vice President and Editorial Director Dr. Matthew Bunson explains.
So here we are looking at the question of Iran, and we can look at some of these criteria that the Church tries to follow. The first is there a just authority, a rightful authority declaring the war? The other question is there a proportional effort being made in this campaign? The other is the cause just in waging this war? So in other words, is that sense of urgency, is that met? Is there an actual evil that has to be confronted? And then there's a question, too, of intentionality. Why are we going to war in this particular question?
In his Sunday Angelus, Pope Leo addressed the situation just hours after the strikes.
Con profonda preoccupazione
I am following with deep concern what is happening in the Middle East and in Iran during this tumultuous time. Stability and peace are not achieved through mutual threats, nor through the use of weapons which sow destruction, suffering, and death, but only through reasonable, sincere, and responsible dialogue. Faced with the possibility of a tragedy of immense proportions, I make a heartfelt appeal to all the parties involved to assume the moral responsibility of halting the spiral of violence before it becomes an unbridgeable chasm.
And stateside, Archbishop Paul Coakley, the president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, echoed the Pope's words in a statement. It read in part, "At this critical moment, I invite Catholics and all people of goodwill to continue our ardent prayers for peace in the Middle East, for the safety of our troops and the innocent, that leaders may seek dialogue over destruction and pursue the common good over the tragedy of war. We implore the intercession of our Blessed Mother Mary, Queen of Peace, to pray for our troubled world and for a lasting peace." Joining us now for more is EWTN News contributor and former ambassador Alberto Fernandez. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
We've seen limited strikes spiral into broader conflicts before. What guardrails exist today diplomatically or militarily to prevent a wider regional war?
Well, I mean, I think the guardrails have disappeared a long time ago. There was a wider regional war last year, which the administration was able to end. But that war involved half a dozen countries. So this is basically the latest iteration of the previous conflict.
Now, looking beyond the immediate operation, does epic fury strengthen or weaken America's standing in the Middle East? And how might this shape U.S. alliances and deterrence policy over the next decade?
Well, right now, it's definitely strengthening U.S. deterrence, and it's strengthening the U.S. position in the region. It's not so much because of what the Americans have done or what the Israelis have done, but because of what Iran has done. Iran has reacted in such a kind of wild way, attacking a number of Arab governments, Arab Gulf governments, but others as well, that has kind of triggered a reaction, creating more sympathy, not just for the United States, but also for Israel among the Arab states.
What does the removal of Khamenei mean for the Iranian government?
It means that no matter what happens, if the regime falls, or even if the regime stays in power, the same regime, the same people that are alive today, Iran is a different place than it was when he was alive. It means the transition in Iran has already happened to something else. And it could be people that were, handpicked by Khamenei, but they're not him, and they're going to have a different worldview, and we're on the verge of a different Iran. Now, how much better it will be doesn't mean that it's going to be democratic or pro-human rights or even pro-Western, but it'll definitely be a different, very different situation that we've seen over the past almost 50 years in the Iranian regime.
And what about Christians in the region? How much danger are they in right now?
Well, mostly Christians are in danger in the region as kind of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, of collateral damage. The Iranians have gotten Hezbollah to enter the war in Lebanon. A lot of villages on the border, for example, have been evacuated. Not Christian villages. Christian villages have not been touched by the conflict yet. But there's a real risk of, obviously, people being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Alberto Fernandez, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly on the ground. Our reporter in Iraq tells us firsthand of the widespread conflict and how the church is responding. And a deadly shooting at a bar in Texas, why the FBI is investigating a link to Iran. The entire Middle East enters a dangerous new phase as this U.S.-Iran conflict spreads to Lebanon and Iraq. After Israeli strikes near Beirut and militia attacks in Erbil, regional tensions are reaching a breaking point. EWTN's Rodi Sher has more from on the ground in northern Iraq.
The situation in the Middle East is rapidly escalating, and what stands out tonight is how quickly the shockwaves are spreading beyond one front. We're seeing heightened tension in Lebanon, and at the same time, news spill over across Iraq and the Gulf, including reports of explosion near key security sites and repeated air defense activity as drones and missiles are intercepted overhead. Tonight, Lebanon is under intense pressure after cross-border attacks from Hezbollah toward the country. Israel launched strikes across Hezbollah-held areas, with Lebanese authorities reporting significant casualties and a growing wave of displacement. In northern Iraq, explosions were reported near Erbil International Airport, where U.S.-led coalition's forces are based. Iranian-backed militia networks, including the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, said they carried out the attack. Local authorities also reported air defense engaging incoming drones and missiles over the area. Across the Gulf, the wider retaliation continues. Reuters reports ongoing Iranian missiles and drone attacks and interceptions, and damage reported in multiple places, and heightened alerts for civilians. In Kuwait, U.S. Central Command said Kuwaiti air defense mistakenly shot down 3 U.S. fighter jets during active operations. A friendly fire incident, and all crew members ejected and were recovered safely. In the middle of these tensions, the local church across the Middle East and the Gulf is calling on the faithful to respond with calm and wisdom. Church leaders are urging people to follow the guidance of civil authorities, avoiding spreading rumors, and turn to prayer as a source of strength and hope, keeping their focus on peace rather than fear. Tonight, the risk is that this becomes broader and harder to contain, with more countries affected and more civilians caught in the middle. But in the church, from Holy Land, Lebanon to Iraq and across the Gulf, the message is simple: keep praying for peace and for leaders to step back toward dialogue. For EWTN News, this is Rodi Sher.
As the conflict continues to expand across multiple borders, many are asking what happens next. Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery served for more than 3 decades in the U.S. Navy, held senior leadership roles in Congress, and is a recognized expert on cyber and technology policy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today.
So this is day 3 of Operation Epic Fury. How successful was the United States and Israel's massive joint military operation that took place in broad daylight, with the U.S. deploying B-2 stealth bombers armed with 2,000-pound bombs as part of the campaign?
You know, as someone who's planned a lot of strikes and a lot of potential strikes, I have to say I was very impressed with day 1. The 900 sortie strike, you know, a mix of Israeli, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, and U.S. Air Force, both regional and, as you mentioned, strategic bombers, was extremely well executed. It mixed air, maritime, and some ground forces. So this is what we're very good at. We're very good at executing a comprehensive strike package. We have lots of munitions. I think we're in great shape. So a very good first 2 days. You know, I would caution that, you know, this type of campaign, with all the objectives we list, has a significant number of days left in it.
Now, the War Secretary says the mission is specifically defined: destroy Iran's offensive missile capabilities, cripple its navy, and prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. From a military standpoint, how realistic is it to achieve all 3 objectives quickly?
Hard, right? So, I mean, that's why this is weeks, not days, because, you know, the strategic leadership obviously took up day 1 and parts of day 2. We're now working over their fielded ballistic cruise missiles and drones. But I think we still have the requirement, as and we've hit their Navy. We've had a requirement, as Secretary said, to finish off their Navy. There's a lot more to it. There's mining capabilities, stowage facilities, things like that. Cruise missiles that could strike merchant ships, we have to take care of those. The production of missiles and drones, so that so that if we have to do this again in the future, if there isn't regime change, then they don't have the ability to strike on day one back at us. And then finally, as you mentioned, the nuclear weapons program, which is a lot of work and working over areas we already hit, but also some new areas that we've probably identified over the last 8 months. So again, a comprehensive event. And then, of course, you have to do battle damage assessment. Did I get done what I wanted to get done? If not, how should I reattack?
And what do you make of Iran's response so far?
Well, expected. We knew they had, several thousand ballistic missiles of different ranges. We knew they had several thousand drones. We knew they had cruise missiles. They've launched all of them. I'd say the thing that surprised me is their willingness to hit clearly civilian targets in the Arab states, in Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, even in Oman. That is that's unusual. We expected them to hit Israel and to hit U.S. forces stationed throughout the Arabian Peninsula, but I don't believe we expected them to intentionally target civilian structures in the Arab states that house U.S. forces.
Now, there was a friendly fire incident. Do you know anything more about that?
I mean, only what I've read in the press, and what I'll say is, in my career, I saw friendly fire incidents routinely. I mean, it's unfortunate. And the more complex and crowded the battle space is, unfortunately, the more likely it is. The more countries you have integrating into that battle space, the more likely it is.
Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
2 people are dead and 14 others are recovering today after a mass shooting at a downtown bar in Austin, Texas, early Sunday morning. The attack occurred just before 2 a.m. Sunday outside Buford's Backyard Beer Garden on West 6th Street. Police said the suspect, 53-year-old Indiaga E. Ajani, opened fire with a handgun from a vehicle before continuing the attack with a rifle on foot. The FBI is now investigating a potential nexus to terrorism after indicators were found on the shooter, who was wearing clothing with an Iranian flag design. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, a message of hope. Pope Leo makes his 3rd Lenten pastoral visit, sharing a special message of hope for the faithful. Leo XIV made his 3rd visit to a parish in his new diocese. He encouraged residents to find hope in the church. EWTN News Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has more.
At the edge of eastern Rome, the quiet streets erupted with joy. Cheers, applause, children calling out, bells ringing. On Sunday, Pope Leo XIV made his 3rd Lenten parish visit in his diocese, this time to the Ascension of the Lord Parish, a neighborhood often defined by struggle, drug abuse, addiction, and fragility. But on the day of the Holy Father's visit, it was defined by something else, hope. In the parish courtyard surrounded by children, the Holy Father smiled, listening, blessing, and encouraging. He pointed to the name of the parish itself, Ascension.
The name of your parish, Ascension, says so much. When Jesus ascends to heaven, he brings the best of our humanity to the Father. In a certain sense, that is the mission of this parish. Yes, evil exists in the world, but more importantly, good exists. Love exists. And this parish is the light of love here in this neighborhood. It is you.
Siete voi. In a part of Rome that suffers from the wounds of drug addiction, the Pope declared, "You are not defined by what breaks you. You are defined by the good you choose." But his message didn't stop at the parish gates, because beyond Rome, the world trembles. In the Middle East, violence escalates after U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran.
I tell you, from this moment, I am very concerned about what is happening in the world, especially yesterday, today, and for who knows how many more days in the Middle East. War again. We too must be heralds of the message of peace, the peace of Jesus, the peace that God wants for all. So we must pray for peace and seek ways to live in unity and always reject the temptation to harm others. Violence is never the right choice, and we must always choose good.
Here at the Ascension of the Lord Parish, following in the footsteps of Pope John Paul II, who visited the same parish 46 years ago, Pope Leo XIV issued a challenge. Be leaven, be goodness in the middle of fracture, and in this parish, on the outskirts of Rome, surrounded by children, amid a neighborhood fighting its own battles, the message was unmistakable. The Ascension is not just something that happened, but something we are called to live. In Rome, Valentina Di Gennaro for EWTN News Nightly.
Santo discenda su di voi, con voi rimanga sempre.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.